familiar with dictionaries. Depends on the age of the audience we're speaking with, but I'm confident most of you know what they are. And it's in that dictionary where I read these words for the first time. Parkinson's, a progressive neurological condition for which there is no cure. But I was just 22, and I had no idea how central that definition would become in my life. But 20 years after my dad's diagnosis, my older brother would receive the same neurological verdict in the early 1990s. And about a dozen years after that, it would be my turn to be diagnosed with Parkinson's as well. Now, it will be a great day when we can Google the word Parkinson's and read a new definition, perhaps something like Parkinson's, a progressive neurological condition that can now be cured. But the truth is, we don't know when that day will take place. For now, we're stuck with the definition that we have, that one I first read nearly 50 years ago, a progressive neurological condition for which there is still no cure. But what is changing, I think, in addition to all of the research that we've been hearing about today, which is so very promising, what is changing is our understanding of what it means to live with Parkinson's, an approach to life which I think depends almost entirely on our ability to make hope real. Now, hope's kind of a funny word, isn't it? In fact, I imagine that a few of you, as I said the word hope, probably rolled your eyes a bit and thought, oh, great, here we go. Another message about staying positive and about having the right attitude, about being hopeful. And it's true. Sometimes hope can seem a little naive, like you're avoiding the hard truths of a hard disease, that you're just engaging in some kind of wishful thinking. But I've always liked what the British writer G.K. Chesterton said about hope, and he wrote this. Hope, he said, is both unreasonable and indispensable. And I think that's true. If you've been diagnosed with a disease like Parkinson's, a progressive neurological disorder, being hopeful does seem kind of unreasonable. And yet I think it's also true that hope is indispensable if you're going to contend with something like Parkinson's. But it's also why hope in the abstract is not enough. Hope doesn't do a lot for you if it's just some vague generality, some worn-out cliche or platitude. We need more than that. We need to make hope real. And that is exactly why I believe that the Dance for PD program, led by my great friend, David Leventhal, is so extraordinary. It makes hope real. Now, what do I mean by that phrase, making hope real? I've been involved in broadcasting and filmmaking all my professional life. And a few years ago, I had the greatest good fortune of my career, and that was to make a film about David's program and about building hope. It's a film about a group of people with Parkinson's who did what seems like the most unlikely thing in the world, to join forces with the world-renowned Mark Morris Dance Group and put on a first-of-a-kind performance in New York City. And that's where making hope real comes in, because if you're going to do that, we're talking New York here. If you're going to dance on a stage in New York City, it's not enough to just engage in wishful thinking, right? It's not enough to just be kind of hopeful. You have to make hope real. You have to give hope sinew and muscle and bone. You have to make it real. And so this film is about that journey. It's about making hope real, about getting ready to do something you never thought that you could do. It's about the enduring power of the body, and just as important, the enduring power of the human spirit. So we'd like to begin by showing you an excerpt from early in the film. The name of the film is Capturing Grace. They've each had something go missing: steadiness of hand or sureness of step, the once confident stride or arms that swing. Parkinson's claims them one by one, even sometimes the ability to smile. They've each had something go missing, but the dream to move freely never goes away.
And a 5, a 6, a 7, here we go, and. Really emphasizing your plie here, so you're kind of staying low. Changing the arms, point. Point. Hey, you!
It's a moment to shine, for a Parkinson's patient to shine, to show what we can do, and to say, here I am.
Keep it coming,
There's a joy that I get from moving around. This is an opportunity to dance, and I like to dance. To be able to fly in an organized pattern.
Good. Let's transition into rehearsal. I believe
dance gives people an opportunity to experience what it's like to move with grace and to move with power and to move with passion.
You can do things that you didn't think you could do. And once you relax and let the body take over, it will go.
The dancing part of this isn't a miracle, and it's not a treatment, but I also see this amazing thing of the people who come into the building one way and leave another way. And I don't mean by a different door, I mean that they've been transformed in a certain way.
It's liberated a part of me, a sense of creativity. When the dance class is going on, there are no patients, they're dancers.
The Dance for Parkinson's program started with a story. Actually, it started with many stories. People with Parkinson's talking about, worrying about, planning around living with Parkinson's. Stories of personal and professional lives derailed, plans altered, identities reconfigured. Ole Westheimer, the founder of the Brooklyn Parkinson Group, members of which you just saw on the screen, she heard these stories and decided to do something about them. She decided to approach the Mark Morris Dance Group to see if we wanted to work with her to change these stories, to see if dance could help people reconfigure their personal narratives and even their identities, to see if the community that formed around the act of dancing could have a significant impact on each member of that community. There's a quote later in Dave's film in which one of the dancers, Marsha Abrams, says, "I don't want to fall and I don't want to look stupid." You know, this quote feels completely appropriate in the Parkinson's context of the film, but actually, it's something that every dancer at every level has uttered it. I think I uttered it pretty much every day in my career. And I think this highlights one of the main themes of our program. You see, I'm convinced that people who dance for a living, professional dancers, and people with Parkinson's have the same challenges and therefore need to work on the same skills. I know this sounds surprising, but I think it's true. So bear with me for a sec. You see, a choreographer creates movement for the dancers whose role it is to try to learn and embody that movement, no matter how difficult, nonlinear, and downright awkward it is. And it can get pretty awkward. And people with Parkinson's have a similar reality, except that daily life is the choreographer, and it throws them tasks that once were familiar and easy, but now are fraught with difficulty and challenge. Dancers and people with Parkinson's are thrown challenges that we need mental and physical strategies to tackle. We both need rhythm, imagery, and other elements to respond to and execute whatever comes at us. The power of our model is this uncanny similarity, a similarity that forges a unique and profound partnership between dancers and our Parkinson's colleagues. There's one other thing that's kind of special about our program. It's the fact that no one is being treated for anything in class. We don't talk about symptoms. We don't call it therapy. It's a dance class. It's an exchange. Because dance approaches the mind, the spirit, and the body holistically, and because dance automatically combines very sophisticated motor learning strategies, meaningful social interaction, and expressive capacity, we actually don't have to change the ingredients of the dance experience to make it beneficial. We just, as teachers, have to understand those elements on an essential level and deliver them in ways that are accessible, fun, and life-affirming. And this, in effect, creates a much wider spectrum of benefits than a class designed to be strictly a therapy session. Imagination, craft, connection, quality of movement, these are the main currencies. Even though people end up addressing critical Parkinson-specific issues like balance, gait, amplitude, coordination, rhythm, and social interaction, I think you saw all of those in the 3 minutes of the film. And even though there are now 38 peer-reviewed studies supporting the benefits of dance for Parkinson's, the artistic emphasis is what helps participants think of themselves as vital members of an artistic community, not as patients. So rather than reinforcing limitation, the program provides an outlet for exploring possibility, and it provides the sense of real hope that can only come from joining with others in a room together to do something meaningful and beautiful and fun.
What David was just describing about what people experience when they come to a dance class is, I think, what you just saw in the opening sequence of the film. Because when you think about it, the people who were on their way at the beginning of the film, they weren't on their way to the clinic. They were on their way to dance class. Because where you're going matters. Because living well with Parkinson's, I think, requires something that no doctor, no matter how skilled, can provide. I think living well with Parkinson's requires that you have to be in charge of your own body. Not your doctor, not your spouse, but you. And you have to be in charge of your own body, I think, because of what Parkinson's is at its essence. I've come to think of Parkinson's as a disease of subtraction. It takes something from you, and then it takes something more. There's a line of narration at the beginning of the film that goes like this. They've each had something go missing. Steadiness of hand or sureness of step. Parkinson's claims them one by one. But what I learned over the course of making this film, what I learned from David's dancers, is that if you're going to deal with a disease of subtraction, you sure as hell better believe in addition. You have to believe that you need to add something always back into your life The people that we filmed all believed in that power of addition. They believed that by adding dance back into their lives, they were getting themselves back on the plus side of the ledger. And they were the only ones who could do that. But make no mistake, addition is hard. The disease actually has it easy. It just takes stuff away. But fighting back is hard. You can give in to subtraction, but addition takes work. And it takes something more. Hope, faith, belief, attitude, call it what you will. But you have to believe that the plus sign is more powerful than the minus. So we want to introduce you next to someone who epitomizes that approach to life. She's someone who's had Parkinson's now for almost 30 years. But despite what the disease has taken from her, she keeps adding things into her life, including the power of dance. Her name is Cindy Gilbertson.
I've learned to value myself more, which is quite a gift. When I'm slumping, I say to myself, I'm a dancer. I have to sit up straight. I am a dancer. And it gives me motivation to take better care of myself. When the medicine is working, I can almost do everything. It's just that the amounts of time get shorter and shorter when it functions. Parkinson's forces you to reveal your vulnerabilities. You know, otherwise people mostly try to put on their best face, their best appearance. You know, I'm going out in public, I have to put on this and that, and I have to put my overcoat, button it up tight. Well, you can't, if you're going with Parkinson's and you can't button it, you're revealed, you know, there's no way about it. What happens to me when my feet feel like glue and they're stuck on the floor, I sometimes cannot walk, but I can dance. If I can, I don't know, I can give you an example. Should I start?
Yeah.
Well, for example, right now I'm off. You can see my hand is shaking. I have the tremor. And if I try to walk, I have a great deal of difficulty. I could walk a little bit, but if I pretend I'm dancing, I could go. And I don't have any problems. The music leads. In other words, it's not my brain telling me to take a step or to do this or do that. The music is leading me. So I'm like following this wonderful leader who's so mysterious and has such a lovely sound, and it's going to take me to some other place.
What is that other place?
Well, excuse me. It's a place where you're weightless. You know, your body is just flies. It doesn't tug at you, tug you and pull you and push you and, you know, have you in these knots where you can't move and you can't think and you're struggling and fighting. It just, you know, you go above that.
Cindy is an extraordinary woman, but the Dance for PD story is more than just the story of extraordinary individuals. From the very first day, our classes have emphasized collaboration over any sort of teacher-student hierarchy. In some ways, this emphasis reflects the communal spirit on which the Mark Morris Dance Group was founded, a belief that dance and music are not elite, rarefied, inaccessible art forms, but rather the joyous, meaningful glue that keeps us together as a species. The spirit of unity means that in our PD class and in the classes here in Sacramento and in Davis, everyone is welcome and everyone dances together. But this emphasis is also a reflection of our teaching philosophy, that the best kind of class is one in which the participants learn how to guide themselves in newly conscious ways. The best class, I believe, creates teachers out of students, helping people lead themselves into action. But the collaborative model goes even further. The Dance for PD class has become a mutually beneficial learning community in which people with Parkinson's teach the non-Parkinson's dancers as much about their own art form as the dancers teach the participants, which I think is very cool. Viewing the class as an exchange, a place where everyone is simultaneously engaged in a learning and teaching process, represents to me the rare evocation of a perfect community. I'm also reminded of the smaller units that make up the greater unified community. Our class has always been open to spouses and partners, care partners, friends, and grandchildren. And so within the class, you're seeing people reconnect to each other and to their loved ones through dance. The challenges and frustrations that Parkinson's causes in those relationships do sometimes enter the studio, but by and large, we see couples and life partners who come together and enjoy class together. The class environment provides a safe, supportive, stimulating place for couples and friends to explore aspects of themselves that may have disappeared in other areas of their relationships, or to explore new sides of themselves, and in the process, grow closer in surprising ways.
When you're first diagnosed with Parkinson's, there's a tendency, I think, to start thinking about yourself differently. Who am I now? Am I my diagnosis? And what about this body of mine? What's going to happen to it? And I remember in particular, after I was diagnosed, this tendency to sort of fast forward into the future, to worry about and to contemplate the not very pretty picture of where the disease will take you. But this, I think, brings us to yet another one of the wondrous benefits of the arts, of the performing arts, and of dance in particular. Because with dance, you can't fast forward, right? When you dance, you can't skip ahead to the end. You have to focus on what's right in front of you, the next step, the next turn, the next beat of the music. It's very similar to what the actor and the wonderful Parkinson's advocate Michael J. Fox says about a rule he learned as an actor. When you're an actor, he says, you have the script. So you know how the show, the play, the movie is going to end. You know how it's all going to turn out. But as an actor, you can't play that ending. You can't play that result. You have to play the scene you're in. You have to stay in the scene you're in. It's true of acting, he says, but it's also true of life, and particularly, perhaps, life with Parkinson's. We have to play the scene we're in. And I think there's yet another lesson we can take from the performing arts, and that's that actors and dancers perform together. They perform as a company. They don't go it alone. They draw strength from the community that surrounds them. And the strength of that community, and that community that David describes, became particularly clear to me as we were reaching the end of our filming. We were just a few weeks away from this big culminating performance in New York City. And then 12 days before that performance was to take place, Hurricane Sandy struck New York. The city was shut down. Subways were flooded, nothing moved. And yet 48 hours after the hurricane made landfall, somehow, some way, 15 of David's 17 dancers made it to rehearsal. They were not going to be stopped. And then right before the performance, if that wasn't enough, a snowstorm struck. Didn't matter. They were in it together. And that is, I think, true for all of us. We need each other, you and me, all of us in this room. We need each other for the strength it takes for this journey. And we need people like this next wonderful couple that you're going to meet, Bobby and Reggie Butts.
I'm serving Reg a slightly browned apple turnover. Okay.
You know, it was a situation like this when Bobby discovered my Parkinson's. I was sitting here like this, and she was sitting in that chair, turned this way, and my hand was going like this.
If you think of the word integrity, think of Reggie, combined with open arms and a warmth of a heart that is too big for any of us to even understand.
With Reggie, the thought of not being there is like out the window. We have to be there, and it's become an important part of our daily lives now.
Reggie's had a number of challenges over the past several years. And in spite of them, he has always come back to class.
He was in hospital for about 2 weeks. When he came back, everybody applauded and stood up.
Hi, Reggie. Hi. Hi, you guys. Come on in. We'll get a chair for each of you, and then I'm good. How are you?
Good. I had been in the hospital, and the outpouring that they gave to me is unbelievable.
When Reggie entered the room, I felt like this has turned into a real dance community, but more than that, a dance company.
All right, Colin, we're ready to go.
Strike a pose, my friend.
He just led in his quiet, powerful way. His form, his shape. He just came in and he was an artist.
They're so dedicated to what they're doing, and that's the key. You gotta fight. You have to fight to keep dancing.
A few months after that scene was filmed, Reggie suffered another stroke and passed away later that year. We mourned him with all our hearts. He was a leader, an inspiration, and an exemplar of the sort of community pillar we'd all like to know. But the draw of community is powerful, and almost 5 years later, Bobby continues to be an active member of our class. And we see this happening in our network of classes around the world. People continue to participate in classes long after their partner leaves the community. Reggie and Bobby help us understand how dance embodies individual artistry and the power of community belonging and expression. Our class recognizes the individual and provides that individual space to explore and express in his or her own way, without judgment, without pressure. As we always say, there is no wrong way to dance. And the range of movement styles within this group is truly remarkable. But that individual is also inherently defined by, connected to, and supported by the group, whether they're a person with Parkinson's or a partner, spouse, or care partner. The group celebrates each individual within it, as well as the sense of community that's created when we commit ourselves to a shared purpose, whether it's based on an aesthetic, rhythmic, or narrative goal. Parkinson's fosters isolation. Dance is all about being in it together. And so we'd like to show you one last clip that was filmed during the final rehearsal on the eve of the performance, and a magical moment that unfolded. So I wanted to kind of do a little bit more work on our passing improv, which we've been working on the last couple of weeks.
One of the things we did a few nights before the performance was a long improvised dance.
When you are done doing your dance, you're going to very clearly pass it off to somebody else. It can be somebody next to you, or it can be somebody across from you, but we're going to use your hands and your eyes to send it to somebody. All right.
There's something we do in class where we improvise something that reflects how we're feeling, what we're thinking. They're handed a gift, and they do something to make it another gift. And then pass it on to someone else. And they're acknowledging the humanness of the other person.
The bonds of our community have grown incredibly strong. We have learned how to create something together that wasn't there before. A sense of joy and confidence and grace.
There's a sense of dignity. People with limited coordination performing on their own, and some of them doing things that are well beyond what they thought they could do.
In that scene, I think you see the transformation from patient to dancer is complete. We see a group of people for whom initiation and movement invention are supposed to be close to impossible, and yet, they're creating breathtaking, artful movement, expressing themselves through body and mind, and reinscribing the bonds of their community without saying a word. They don't hesitate or hold back. They know who has taken a turn and who still needs to dance. They are fluid. They are creative. It goes back to something Joel Marsh, a participant in Berkeley, told me after his first few classes. When I dance, he said, I don't have Parkinson's. Medically, of course, this isn't true, but I knew what he meant. In this space, Parkinson's is nowhere in the room. It's not a result that would show up in a clinical setting, but that doesn't lessen or invalidate its significance. In the stories that the dancers tell, in the movement and grace they share with us and with each other, in the strength of the community they create, we understand the inherent value of people dancing and the importance of measuring impact through experience, not just through numbers or data. No measure of gait, balance, or tremor can tell us what Reggie, Cindy, or the other dancers can tell us. In listening and observing people, and in helping them tell their stories, filmmakers and advocates like Dave remind us to measure what we do on our own terms. They remind us, to paraphrase Davis Finney, that every plie counts. In class, we celebrate the complexity and the dignity of those who come to dance with us.
It's now been nearly 50 years since I first got that letter from my mom telling me my dad had been diagnosed with something called Parkinson's disease. And now, nearly 50 years later, the definition of that disease remains the same: a neurodegenerative disease for which there's still no cure. And we don't know when we'll be able to Google Parkinson's and find the words Parkinson's and curable side by side. But while the definition of the disease remains the same, great progress is being made in research. And as we wait for that eventual goal of finding a cure, we can continue to change how we live with Parkinson's. You take a gift, Charlie Toby says in that last clip, and you add something to it, and then you pass that gift on. It's how we build hope, I think, one gift, one person at a time. We all have the opportunity, I think, to accept the gifts that are offered to us. And we all have the opportunity to offer gifts to others, and in so doing, add to our own lives and to those around us. And just as actors and dancers perform as a company, we all need to stand shoulder to shoulder together as well. We need to play this scene together. And when we do that, we place a collective bet on the power of hope. Parkinson's may be a disease where things go missing, from the steadiness of your hand to the sureness of your step. Parkinson's may claim them one by one, but it can't claim us, not any of us, not today and not tomorrow, not if we join together and make hope real. David and I want to thank you so very much for having us here today.
Are you guys like this too? Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here, being supportive, and please take the advice and have your social network with Parkinson's folks, and make the best of everything. We'll see you in the future. Goodbye.
I just want to say how proud we are of Nancy Kretz organizing this conference, the speakers, the subjects, the venue, and I want to ask for another round of applause for a magnificent job.